Okay, that's great. Chizuk, yeah, 100%. 100%. Okay. All right. Okay. So I realized last week the end of it was a little bit rushed with the rush bump, but I feel like it wasn't. I don't want to. It's a difficult sugya, and we had to finish it to move on to new territory, new vistas to explore, this type of thing. Anyway, so this is, yes, as I said, this will build into the sugya of Kol Alim Gvar, and it begins with almost like a preliminary piece, which is not quite the main sort of kishkas of the question when we say Kol Alim Gvar, but the concept that we will get to explore is this idea of when do Beis Din, well, this is part of the question. They step out of the situation and say, look, in this particular scenario, we actually don't know who wrote it. And then we're not prepared. We're not prepared to issue a ruling one way or another. So fight it out between you. It sounds like Law of the Jungle, right? Oh, he's back already. It sounds like, huh? Okay, right.
Do we have that before?
Yeah. So that's right. So Ellie just pointed out to me that we did mention it at the beginning of the Masech. We actually did mention it before as well earlier in this parak, right? Earlier in this parak. But one of the things we have to try and understand with this, because it sounds a very strange concept, we're quite legalistic. We're into resolving disputes, not letting people fight between them. So there's a couple of things. Number one, we have to understand what does it mean? Does it literally mean fist fights, right, or whatever? I mean, how does it mean called island? Whoever's stronger wins, right? Whoever manages to get it. Also, is it, and this is a question I think we've touched on before, and one thing we have to kind of analyze and work out, is it a psak din or is it a siluk din? There's a big difference. A psak din is based on issuing a ruling. The ruling is kol da'alim gvar. The ruling is not hamutz mechavel haraya. The ruling is not yachloku, divide it, right? The ruling is kol da'alim gvar, and that's a psak, right? Or is it what we call a siluk din? The Beis Din say we cannot resolve this, and therefore the most equitable way of resolving it is for us not to resolve it. You understand? And that's the key question. Okay, these are the key questions we have to ask ourselves, and we'll see where we get to. But first, we've got a story which builds into it, and this is a story of a ship. Hahu Arvo, there was a ship. This is most top of the page, right? Top of the page of Lamed Daled Omid Beis. Okay, top of the Omid. Hahu Arvo, there was a ship. The Havu Minsu Allah. There were two people fighting over this ship. Hi Omar Didiu, right? This one said it's mine, and this one said it is mine. Okay. So one of them came to the Beis Din, and he thought he'd be clever. For Omar, and he said to the Beis Din, Tifsua, take hold of it. Take hold of it. Here's the Beis Din. Listen. I'm telling you, I know this boat is mine, right? But I can't prove it yet. But I will be able to prove it. So I want you to take it into the luxury harbor that the Beis Din owns, the marina, the Beis Din marina, and I want you to hold on to the ship until I bring my proofs, right? Until I bring my proofs. And therefore the question is, tafsinon, oi loy tafsinon, right? Do we take hold of it or do we not? Fascinating question. Because again, not yet. You won't get called down and go up. It's a very interesting question, right? Do you have a mechanism? Does a mechanism exist in a Beis Din to keep things on pause, right? So a person makes an application to Beis Din saying, I'm telling you, I know I'm going to be able to prove this, but not yet. The guy is on his way back, right? He's not going to be here yet. And therefore just hold on to it until I bring my proofs. Do Beis Din get involved to that extent? Are they allowed to do that? Do they want to do it? Do they not? You say, what on earth they're getting themselves in a difficult position. What?
Depends on what its current usage is.
Well, there are two people fighting over this ship. No. They're both fighting over it. No. One second. So the Rashbam. Rashbam is going to deal with all the questions that you're raising, which is, okay, well, what's the story? I mean, are they holding it together? Are they both? Where is it? Is it my property? Is it in yours? Or are both of us like grabbing two ends of the ship? What's the story? Okay, fine. Yeah.
If this was actually going to Beis Din, would the Beis Din hold it in the judgment? This is not the same thing, right? This is not that case. The guy hasn't brought the other guy to Basin for a full warning.
What do you mean? No, he hasn't brought him to Basin.
Right? So it's
He hasn't brought him to Basin. We have a dispute over this ship, and it has to be a scenario, as I'm going to explain, where there isn't chazaka. Otherwise, it's not relevant. We start going through the halachas of chazaka. So who's the muchsuk? You're being motzi it. You're trying to take it away from the guy who's got chazaka. So clearly, the scenario is one where there is no chazaka. What case exactly that is, we'll have to see. But there must be no chazaka. Otherwise, the case doesn't make any sense, right? If I'm muchsuk in something, I can't make an appeal to Basin for Basin to hold on to it until I prove that it's mine, because I've got chazaka. The other guy's got chazaka, so it's his until proven otherwise. But obviously, this is a scenario where we don't know whose it is, and there's no chazaka, right? And therefore, the question is, the Basin get involved to hold it until the other guy manages to bring his proofs. Everything moved slower in those days. I came across a beautiful letter at the Basin. I was looking at an old Geiris file, which actually was to do with the original Glasgow. The files of the Glasgow Basin are held now by the London Basin. There used to be a Basin in Glasgow. It's a big killer. They had their own Basin, and the files are now all held in London. And I was looking at a file from the 1950s, and there was a letter from Diane Grunfeld to a petitioner, someone who had been asking for a conversion case. And the letter began by him apologizing that it's taken him time to get back. Why? Because he said, I'm still recovering from a very stormy crossing back from the United States. So this is in 1951 or something, 53. Yeah, and he's like, it's taken me several weeks to get over the crossing, and now I'm ready to deal with your case. And it's like, we can't picture a life moved at a different pace in every respect, right? This was how it's... Anyway. The Diane went to America for how long? I don't know, 3 weeks. Well, 2 weeks either way on the crossing. That's a 6-week trip. One day meeting. Yeah. So the question is, tafsir or lo tafsir? Do we take hold of it or not? So let's see the Rashbam now before we see how it's resolved. Or the machlok is about it. Arva, so it's a Rashbam is, can you see it's after that very, very long Rashbam we did last time. Arva, is Svina Shebanahar, is a ship in the river. Yeah, you can see it, right? It's about 10 lines where it gets wider. A ship in the river. Neither of them are muchsak in it. Neither of them are holding it. Otherwise, we should have asked immediately from Shnaim Mechas and Batalis. Classic case, movable item, two people holding on to the talis, and the rule is this one takes as how far his hand goes, and this one takes how far his hand goes. That's a very, very, very brief summary of a very, very complicated Gemora at the beginning of. Yeah, well, no, it's not really. That's the thing. It's not. That's the point. There, it's a chazaka, isn't it? That's what it is, right? It's not really calling going. We're not fighting over it. Okay. Okay. The truth is, the next words Rashbam seem to be like he says kol alim kvar. We don't say kol alim kvar. Okay, so that's a question whether or not that is. Yeah. I mean, the truth is, one second, there's a Rashash in this, because what the Rashbam is saying that, what was that? No, Kol Nagvar means whoever stronger wins. Sorry, I should keep translating. So Kol Nagvar means whoever stronger wins. That's literally what it means. Alim is strong and well, exactly. 1 second, let me just see. Limited on base. No limited on base. 1 second. Okay, the Rashash just points out it's a brisa. It's actually not the Mishnah. It's a brisa. Okay. All right. So okay. So either way, we're saying that neither of them are muchsuk, and because neither of them are muchsuk, so neither of them actually have more of a chazaka than any other. They are fighting over a ship that's in a neutral space. It's in the river, right? So therefore, you can't say, well, each of them take as much as they have, right? And therefore, we don't say. And he says, we don't say whoever is stronger wins. That's what Rabbeinu Chananel explains it. it seems to be saying, that there would not be that there is perhaps a method of called Adam Gvar, which is a bit strange. I'm not sure why that should be called Adam Gvar. Avrami, that's how you thought it was. That's what you thought it was. Called Adam Gvar. A second. Okay. Well, okay. So I think I think that actually the Lo Amrin and called on Gvar is going on the continuation of the Gemora. The Gemora is saying like this: had it been the case that they were both holding, Rashbam is saying like this: had they both been holding on to it, so then we would resolve it on the basis of the principles of Chazaka. The Klalim of Chazaka would say, in that case, you take as far as your hand, where your hand is, and you take where your hand is, and we don't go down the route of Kol Da'alim Kvar, whoever stronger wins, right? That's what we would say. The point is here, we can't do that. We don't do that because no one is muhsan. So therefore, the request comes in. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to bring proofs that it is mine, which is one way of. We'll see. That's one way of how Kol Da'alim Kvar plays out. If I bring, it doesn't have to be force by force. It can be with by civilized means, right?
Meaning stronger meaning whichever.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. That's what the implication. This is how the Rashbam understands. So, so the Tifsua, the Gemara Rashbam continues. So he requested from Beis Din Tifsua Penyim Kureno, take hold of it and lest it be sold. So Rashbam is now preempting a question. You know what? Maybe the reason why he's coming to Beis Din and saying, you hold on to the ship while I get my proofs, is because he's worried that whilst I go to find it, yeah, he's going to sell it. But that's not going to work. Chazaka, he is worried he's going to sell it. He's worried he's going to sell it. But right? But any chazaka that he takes afterwards is nothing. Because we're going to assume that he just snatched it. He took it by force. He took it. Yeah, the other guy. So what's the concern here? Why is he asking Beis Din to look after the ship? Not because he's worried about not because he's worried about the other guy taking it. Because if the other guy takes it, right, we're going to assume that he just snatched it. He took it. It wasn't clear who the owner was. So we're going to say, well, obviously you took it without any reason or rational proof that it was yours. So they're not going to leave it with you. There's a dispute over this ship, right? The concern is that he might sell it. And if he sells it, you're going to be stuck because you're probably not going to have recourse to be able to reclaim it. It's going to be difficult for you to get it back. How are you going to be able to get it back at all? And that was why he says to Beis Din, please look after it for me, right? Because that's what he's worried about. Not because worried about someone. Once a person has made a claim over this, and once there's a dispute over it, and I'm being ma'ara, and I'm saying this ship is mine, right? So you can't be. But the concern is the other guy might sell it. He might do something devious like selling it whilst you are still getting your proofs. That's your concern. Now it could be. You could then ask, well, can I get it back from the guy he sells it to? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe it's difficult to get it back to. Maybe you get onto all sorts of questions of has the buyer got getting any protection because he bought. The other guy hasn't really got a proof that it was his. So maybe he sold it legitimately. Whatever it could, you don't want the guy to sell it. That's for sure. I want to bring my proofs to Beis Din. I want Beis Din to look after the ship whilst I bring them. So the question is we have to answer now: do we take hold of it or not? Tafsinon or lo tafsinon? And the min lema, says the Rashbam, the next Rashbam, do we say the tafsila based in the basin take hold? Because if we don't find witnesses, hadrinon mafkinon law kara. If we don't manage to find, if he doesn't find, Adim, so what's going to happen? Hadrinon mafkinon law kara. We'll put it back as it was before. But it's based in klum. Why shouldn't we take hold of it? The person who really owns it is not going to lose by us holding it. It gives him a bit of chance. Okay, we'll give you a week. See if you can come up with any proofs. And if you can't, we're going to release it. And you have the other guy hasn't lost. Dilma, perhaps low tough sinon. We mustn't take hold of it. Based and can't take hold of it. The Dilma low mashkech sadi, because maybe he won't find Adim. Veloy hadrinon umafkinon la kedelakamon. And we'll see later on that once based in are holding it, they can't just release it now. We've involved ourselves now. We're stuck because we've played an active role. We may not be able to release it now. We've got to now solve it. We're holding on to it now. And therefore, the owner of the ship has now lost through us, the real owner.
It goes to the crown.
It goes to the crown. Yeah,
I
but yeah, I don't know if we have such a concept in that way. Sort of. Yeah, the other shavkinon law, because had we left it, had not taken it, maybe he would have been stronger. And he would have become, the owner of the ship would have won and claimed it and beaten the other guy. And he would have merited his own, got his own item. This, says Rashbam, seems to me to be the point of the question. Now, so the Rashbam understands that the question of whether we take hold of it or not, okay, is dependent on the second half of the question, which the Gemora is going to explore later on, which is, if we do hold it, can we then release it or not? What grounds what?
Can you release it?
Yeah, there's two questions here. Number one, if a request is put into, and there's two questions here, which now become immediately apparent to us as we're going through the Gemara, right? First question is, if a request comes in to us to take hold of an item because someone which is of doubtful status, to hold it until to give that one person a chance to prove it. So the question number one is, do we agree? Can we agree to such a request? Question number two is, if we do agree, once we've got it, what do we do with it, right? If the guy can't prove it.
Can't prove it, then he's lost his taste.
No, so then the question is, well, what do we do? Do we then replace it? Are we then allowed to replace it where it was before, let it float in the river, and whoever called Alim Dvar, and whoever wins, sleep it, release it, or can we not do that now? Now that we're holding it already, not quite that it goes to the crown, but now we have a responsibility over it. We can't just release it now.
Yeah.
Hasn't been able to go Christian.
No, we can't release it to the guy who can't prove it. We just have to hold it. We just have to hold it. We have to hold it. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But it doesn't be hefta. But the question is, do we actually? You see, this is to do with. This is the question of to what degree do the Beis Din have a responsibility over Jewish property? Is there an overriding responsibility which says you can't just release a £1 million yacht once you're holding it? You can't. It's irresponsible almost for a Beis Din to do that.
Isn't it similar to the rules of Shavas Aveda if you find lost property?
But it's not a Shavas Aveda. It's a question. We don't know who owns it. We just do not know who owns the yacht.
As a minimum standard.
Yeah, you could win. But it's not lost, remember. It's not lost, it's disputed. It's disputed property.
Neither of them can prove it. Maybe it doesn't belong to either of them. So you ask people to come forward with evidence of their own.
And let's say they have no evidence. Then what do you do? So you've got disputed property.
Raffle it off for
But you can't, you don't own it.
You need to prove it, though. Why isn't it hefka? You need to prove the
Why should it be hefka? What makes a hefka? Because it belongs to someone. It's not ownerless.
Then surely if you can't prove it, just
draw lots. Draw lots from it.
Not necessarily, because since the Beis Din have now got it, we are holding it, right? We are. Who says we've got the ability now to just release it back into the
But why not?
ether?
If you can't prove it, can't you have an arbitrary means of just drawing lots or something?
Not necessarily, no.
Why should they have a responsibility?
Why should they?
There's a specific request. Hold it for whatever 6 weeks while I prove it. And if he can't prove it, then why is it the basis of responsibility?
The question, should they have
You've got
taken
the
that request? Should they act on such a request?
You're just back to square one.
Once they,
You know worse off.
I think they should have tackled the car.
yeah,
Oh!
it's a good,
Quite a standing ovation.
yeah, it's a good line. Okay. Let's continue. I think we should continue and then see if any of these questions resolve themselves. The Rashbam has understood that the question over. Okay, we've appreciated now that there are two stages to this question. Number one, are based allowed to take hold of it, and number two, are they allowed to release it if they do? Right? Rashbam understands that the first question, it depends on the second one. Right? That's the point. Right? If you say that we can release it anyway, so what's the difference? We might as well agree to hold it. No one's going to lose out, so we might as well hold it because maybe we can resolve it that way, and this guy might bring proof. And if he doesn't, we'll release it anyway. Back to square one. We haven't looked. But if you say that. What's this here?
One guy's losing out on the use of that boat.
The use. That's interesting. The use of the boat. Someone says that. I've got it written here. Yeah. Yeah.
Can they levy charges for looking off?
I've got written here in very faint pencil from about 20 years ago from a shirin I heard in Gate City Yeshiva. It's like Eli. It says the pshat of the Pirish Kadmon, one of the Rishonim, Mafsim came Mafsid Habaylim is Manzeh. The Bailim lose out for that time. Where does he say that? Where? Which one? This one? Which one are you looking at? We haven't done that. He says, he says he hasn't lost out. Rashbam says lo yifsid ba'alasfina.
Yeah, but that's the question.
No, in the question, yeah, the question meaning the two, according to Rashbam, the two sides of the question are: if you say we'd release it anyway afterwards, so why not? He hasn't lost anything by us holding it temporarily.
So you can't take it because he will lose out.
What will he lose out?
The usage of it whilst basically.
But the Rashbam doesn't say that. The Rashbam says oidilma, or perhaps lo tafsinon. We don't take hold of it. Why? The dilma lo mashkik sadi, because maybe you won't find Adim, the other guy. V'lo hadrinon mafkinon no. Well, we haven't done that yet, but whatever. Yeah. The question is, according to the Rashbam, is not about the time, that period of time when he uses out the potential use of it. The question is, we on the one hand we can say we take hold of it because no one's losing out, because we're going to release it anyway, so might as well hold it now while he sees if he can get some proof, right? Leave aside that point about the time, or because he's asked us to, so that he can see if he can get proof, yeah. Or we say no, and we say no because once we're holding it, he's going to lose because we're not going to release it. We're not going to release it once we're holding it. And that's the second sad. Oidilma, we do not take hold of it because maybe he won't find Adim. And if he doesn't find Adim, we're not going to release it. And that's why he's lost. Yeah?
Two gentlemen have a dispute over the ownership of the boat.
Yes.
One comes along and says it's mine, another says it's mine, etc. What authority do you basically have to get involved to take the boat when it's a private dispute between two individuals?
We're being asked. We're being asked to. One of them's asked to, that's right.
He's concerned.
He's worried he's going to lose it. He says, I've got proof. They're coming next week.
Why are you involved in basing?
No, it's a question. Can we get involved or not? Should we?
You're saying one of them says you can.
Yeah. Let's see. We're going to explain why. We're going to explain why, though. That's right. We're going to explain why. Yeah.
Can't based in intervene physically, like beat someone to give permission for a get or something like that in certain circumstances. I'm just thinking in that case, Calvafeno, they should be able to hold the boat.
To hold a boat, well, maybe they would want to do that. You could argue they would want to do that in order to help resolve the question. That's right. That's right. It's not nearly as bad as beating someone up. Basin don't generally beat someone up. It's not. They can in theory, but it's, yeah.
Given their extensive.
There was a famous case in America. You know, the guy was arrested. There was a diner who was arrested for the cattle because he was attacking people with a cattle prod. You don't know, look it up. Google it. Yeah, recently. Like recently. Yeah, recently. A get, no, to extort a get. But it's very difficult. You can't force a get. I don't know, but I think he went to jail. You can't with a cattle prod. You heard about this case? Pardon? You know about the case? Yeah, that's right. And they were trying to get the get. It's not so simple anyway to force a get. Anyway, there's certain cases basically force, but you can't. What? Yeah, it's a fair point. Anyway, let's see the machlokas. This is the shaila. The Gemora. Let's go back to the Gemora. Sinon, Rav Yehuda Omar lo Sinon. So let's see the whole thing. Rav Yehuda says we can take hold of it. Yes, we can help him out. Rav Yehuda Omar lo Sinon. Rav Yehuda says no, we don't. We cannot take hold of it. We cannot take hold of it. And what happened was Ozal. He went and the result, the end of the story was he didn't manage to find anything in the end. So Omar Lahu, he said to them, Afkua for called Alam Gvar. Okay, so now he realizes that he's not in a good place now because he thought that he would be able to find proof. He wasn't able to find proof. So now he turns around to Basin and says, right, can you release the ship, please? Can you release the yacht for called Alam Gvar? And now release it and we'll fight it out. Mafkinon or lo mafkinon. Right? Do we release it or do we not release it? So that's the second shayla. Are you with me? You understand what's happened? Right. Yeah? Rav Yehuda says we do not release it. Okay? Rav Papa Amar Mafkinon. And Rav Papa says we do. Why? Rav Yehuda, according to Rashbam, is consistent with his first opinion. Rav Yehuda says lo tafsinon. We don't hold it. Why? Because I hold that if we did, we would be stuck with it forever. Therefore, no time. No, but not. He's not just because of no. Yes, true. Not just because of the need to look after the yacht, but because we are going to make the other guy lose out. Because once Basin have got it, you're never going to release it again until someone can prove it, right? And that's what it does. Rav Papa says you do. Now, the hilchos halacha is lo tafsinon. We don't take hold of it. But if we did take hold of it, we don't release it. Okay, so that's what happens. So, okay. Now let's see the. Yeah, basically, exactly. Let's see the Rashbam.
Question.
Yeah.
Rapina is in the first question, and Papa is in the answer in the second question.
Yeah.
When did Rapina take a?
He didn't take a view on the second, but he holds that up. Look at the Rashbam. Rafuna Omet of Sinon. You with me? You see it? Rafuna Omet of Sinon. Spherule Rav Papa. Right? You with me? Yeah, you see Rashbam? What? Yeah. Rafuna holds a Spherule Rav Papa the Amam Afkinon. Because he holds out Rav Papa who says you have to release it. And therefore, Rafuna says, Tafsinon, why shouldn't we be tofus it? It's a potential way of resolving the dispute. He's asking us to hold on to it for a couple of weeks while he brings his proof. The other guy's not losing because he hasn't got any proof. So let's hold on to it and see what happens. And it will make sure that he doesn't sell it and risk someone, so this answers Jeremy's question, and risk someone, losing out unfairly because they couldn't prove it. And meanwhile, he did a sneaky thing in the middle of the night and he towed the yacht somewhere else and sold it to someone in a different part of the country. So we want to prevent that happening. Reasonable thing to do. No one's losing out. But that's only because he holds our Papa Domavkinon. Rav Yehuda Emalot of Sinon. Rav Yehuda says we don't take hold of it. Because he holds that you don't release it, as we say later on. Therefore, Lotaf Sinon, we don't take hold of it. The Shemal Ze'ain Lot Eidim. Why? So because maybe he doesn't have any witnesses. V'shakronhu, and he's a liar. And he just wants to. He's just a nasty piece of work, and he just wants the other guy to lose out because he can't get it. So because since we take hold of it, Yodeahu the Sulam of Kinon. He knows we're never going to release it. That's a really nasty piece of work. You understand? You've got this £1 million yacht, and I know I'm making a spurious claim that it's mine. I know that I'm lying through my teeth, and I have no proof that it's mine. But because I am clever and I've learned the Gemora of Basra, I know that once Bastin, enjoying this, Jeremy, once Bastin get hold of it, the other guy is finished because they're never going to release it from the Beth Din Marina. And therefore, I've got a brilliant plan to make sure that you don't get your hands on that £1 million yacht. And that's why Bastin don't take hold of it.
getting based.
Because the guy,
Yeah, yes.
the guy knows actually the other guy's not approved either. What's to stop him just going and taking the yacht? If
If
he's a stronger hand.
he does have a stronger hand. Which other guy? The other one?
No, the chaperone. I mean, if he was already.
Oh, I see. Well, it's obviously a case where he can't do that. He can't do that. We're going to come to that. Yeah.
Once based in own it, but if they would have gone to based in with a dispute prior to them grabbing it,
Yes.
would work to determine ownership.
So, well, it's interesting that if they would come to Based-In with a dispute, okay, so this story, we should maybe point this out originally, seems to be predicated, right, on the point of Kol Alim Gvar, in the sense that if the guy hadn't started a conversation about, I've got proof somewhere and they're going to come in a few weeks' time, what would Based-In do? Kol Alim Gvar. That's what they would do. No one's being machzik. We're stuck, and therefore fight it out, however you define it. So that's why this is the sugya called Alim Gvar. However, in this first scenario that the Gemora brings, and by the way, the next sugya is the classic case where psak is given called Alim Gvar. It doesn't come yet to call Alim Gvar initially because the guy says, "Well, I can prove that it's mine, so just look after it while I bring proof." And then when he can't, the din should be now called Alim Gvar because I can't prove it, and it doesn't look like you can either. But the problem is if we're holding it already, it's not clear we can actually release it now. That's the issue. So anyway, yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, the Lachos like reviewed about Omale Afkua. The Gemara carries on. Rashbam carries on. So he said now, since he can't bring proof, he said Afkua, release it. I could go into Isrami Milsa the Tafsino Lakarafuna. And the case is the Isrami Milsa that Tafsino Lakarav. 1 second, let me just go back. Yeah, sorry. The case is that he said that we took hold of it like Rafuna. So the halach, for whatever reason, based in followed Rafuna. Inami alternatively, Sha'amru Shneim based in the Tofs of a Divrakol. So Rashbam adds this in because it's a bit difficult to understand how it came about that we actually took hold of it. On the one hand, you can either say they're based in Pascal like Rafuna. That's a bit difficult because we don't Pascal like Rafuna. So it's a bit difficult to know. They were the based in of Rafuna, so they followed Rafuna, and that's why they took hold of it. And therefore the Shaila arose, can we release it now? Alternatively, you can have a scenario where they both agreed that based in should hold it. That's also entirely possible. I've got a dispute over this yacht, right? Come on, let's sign an agreement that neither of us will do something really nasty, try and sell it on the quiet, even though we haven't got any proof that it's ours, and we'll give it to Based-In temporarily. You can easily see people doing that. A dispute over a diamond ring. What are you going to do with it? No one trusts you. Where are you going to put it? Doesn't it have some mechanisms like that in law in this country as well? Isn't there a place putting things until they're resolved? There must be something like that in the courts.
It's escrow for money.
Yeah.
Where you deposit it until, well, there you are.
It's not officially in town.
Not officially impounding. But there must be some sort of mechanism for items, no?
Stolen goods could be in town.
No, not stolen goods. Let's say there's a dispute over an item. Someone will take control of it, right?
Custodian, you pay a custodian.
That's what customs collector.
Yeah. Expected, yeah.
No, but the principle of like a
Yeah.
warehouse, whatever it
Yeah.
is, that is a designated place owned by HMRC or the government.
Yeah.
And if you want the items back, you either have to resort pay.
Yeah, it's the same idea. Yeah. But you can either way have a case here where they both agree, based and look after it until they are based and look after it. Now, so the halacha is, do we release it or not? So Rav Papa says, Rav Yudah says, Lemafkino. Sorry, he says to release it b'chol da'alim gvar. Bein barayas. This is a very important Rashbam. What does it mean, kol da'alim gvar? It's the first time we've mentioned the words. Kol da'alim gvar. Whoever stronger wins. Bein barayas, bein b'koach. Whether with proof or with force. As we're going to see in the next Gemora, Rav Nachman passes, and that is the halacha that in some cases we say called alim gvar, whoever strong wins, and it doesn't mean only with bringing proof; it could mean by force as well. Sounds tough, right?
Proofs, but not proofs that are good enough to win the base?
Um,
Because then presumably you just go to base. He has someone who says it was my vote or something.
well, that's an interesting question. When you say not in base, what does that mean? You mean you're asking who you bring the proofs to? Presumably, you've got to show the proofs to someone. Okay, if it's false, we understand. We're fighting out.
A slam dunk proof. Otherwise, you just take the base and I've got proof here. What do you mean? If the guy's got some thugs, he can take over my boat. That doesn't make sense. There must be some kind of proof that.
For example, you might have an old photograph that he was standing on the yacht.
Exactly, something like
which
that.
is not proof.
Hearsay evidence.
Yeah.
Hearsay.
Yeah, but who's going to adjudicate? Who adjudicates?
That's the point.
That's the point. Who adjudicates the Kol Ba'alim Kvar? I mean, who says the photo? Who tests if the photo is genuine or a forgery?
It's going to come down to might as well.
Well, that's the problem. Someone's got to have, and this is where it comes into this question of whether the Bastin's level of involvement. What is their level of involvement when they say Kol Ba'alim Kvar? Is it a complete removal of Bastin's authority in every way, and you can fight it out between you, whoever manages to prove it, and we rely on your moral sensibility to overcome one another or whatever, or do we then adjudicate over that debate? Maybe that's what it means.
Is there
Presumably someone has to adjudicate. But yeah, it's a way of resolving a dispute. That's what it is.
Take it to the High Court, as in take it out of the base.
Pardon?
Call the Island Court and take it to the civil court.
No. It is difficult. Yes. It is difficult to understand. You see, we'll have to see. Well, the reason why this is a bit complicated. Sorry, just 1 second. The reason why it's a bit complicated is because there are different implications from different lines of the Rashbam and other Rishonim as to how to understand exactly how the mechanism works. Here, the Rashbam just says, "Kol Ba'alim Kvar, bein b'rayos v'mikaf." Proves all strength, whoever you can do, basically sort of fight it out between you. But later on, the Rashbam is going to say, on the next Omid, that we leave them, the Kol Ba'alim Kvar, and whoever is stronger wins, ad shiavoyo Eidim, until Eidim come, v'yavaru hadoha, and prove one way or another conclusively. And that implies that it is really based in stepping back and saying, look, there's nothing we can do at the moment, so fight it out between you. And until there's proof, I mean, you'll never get conclusive ownership. The guy could bring Eidim tomorrow. So we need to get back to the story. We're going to ask something on.
Yeah, I once remember hearing my brothers talking about people complaining because we were going to Bastin with. I'm not sure there were court cases or arbitrations, but there was always a compromise, and
So Gemora and Sanhedrin,
yeah,
about making sharas.
Exactly, and a lot of people saying, well, Bastin should have won with it. Isn't this a classic case of where they should just make an arbitration?
How can you do that if they genuinely don't know whose it is?
Well, they must have they could drill them both, work out, and make a ruling.
But sometimes how do you make a ruling?
Well,
Okay. The truth is that's what the Gemara is going to challenge the concept. On the next Omid, the Gemara is going to challenge the concept of Kol Ba'alim Kvar with an alternative option. There are two potential alternative options to Kol Ba'alim Kvar. What options do Basin have open to them? Think about it. What would you say? In a case where it seems unresolvable, okay, with no proof, nothing, what do you do? There are at least two other options. Pardon? Right, Yachlok. That's one option. Divide. That's a psak, Okay, we can't.
It's about making a shvur last week.
Making a shvur, yeah, but that wouldn't really. Okay, shvur potentially could be part of that, but that's not going to resolve it. Since that, pardon? Well, that's the same. That's another way of saying the same thing. Different mechanism. Whether you sell it or whether you split the time, whatever. There's another one. Comes back to what Eli said before. You almost hit on it before.
Mediate.
No. What did you say before? The can't Bastin solve it by what? By trying just coming to a decision, basically. And this is what we call shudod dayanim, which means that the dayanim go with their gut feeling based on all the facts involved as to who is more likely to be telling the truth or to have ownership. Is it conclusive? Is it proof? No, but it is a way of resolving the dispute. For example, there's a £1 million yacht. No one has proof, right? One guy owns 3 houses in various parts of the world, and the other guy lives in a shack somewhere and has nothing to his name. It's more logical that the £1 million yacht is owned by the guy with 3 houses, right? It's not that logical that it's owned. There you are, and that's why it's not a simple. That's why it's not a simple psat.
Therefore, there can't be any other option. Why wouldn't you always just do Yachloku?
No, because because and that is what So this is exactly, again, we're sort of a little bit jumping ahead of ourselves, but I'm just we're framing the debate here. What the Gemara is going to do it primarily in the next sugya is analyze why it is that Rav Nachman does not go down these routes in the cases in the scenario called Adam Far. Okay, why is it that he doesn't go down that and he doesn't go down these options of the based in analogy? Why does he go for Colin? Okay, so that's what we need to understand. Now let's just finish this one. So the question was, do we release it or not? And Rav Yehuda says, Loi mafkinon. Why not? Says the Rashbam, about 10 lines from the bottom, what's the reason not to release it? Because since the property, Jewish property has come, biyad beistin, in the hands of beistin, einon rashoyin lahafkiro. They're not allowed to just make it ownerless. They have now a responsibility over that money. I can't just say it's hefka. Right? They have to hold the money until they know who to return it to. It has got echoes of Hashavas Aveda, of returning a lost item. You're not allowed. If you've got jurisdiction over a lost item, for example, you can't just release it and be mafkir it. You're not allowed to do that. And in fact, if you remember the case in Bava Metzia, the famous case of the chickens, which became sheep, no? So Gemora, right? Where you eventually had to sell the chickens. And the chickens became sheep, and the guy comes back, and after many years, and he gives, here's your chickens, right? And he gives him back a flock of sheep. Why? Because the chickens became sheep. So because he made money on it. Otherwise, what? Yeah. So we said Hamotzimei Chavera Olav Haraya can only work if there's a chazaka. And here there's no chazaka. No one's holding it. Hamotzimei Chavera Olav Haraya means, if I'm trying to take it from you, I need to prove it. But if no one's muchzak, there's no motzei chavera. I'm not being motzi. None of us are motzi. We're stuck. We don't know whose it is. Right? Yes. The motzei chavera, you have to have chazak. Exactly. It's sitting in the middle of a river. There's no chazak. Right? Now, that's Rav Yehuda's opinion. Rav Papa says mafkinon. Why? Ke'en shemetzu'u mitchila. As they found it originally, Shinadas came to Sur, because on this basis they took hold of it. Shimlo yovi edim yachseru v'chol alim kvar. Rasham is saying, how does Rav Papa look at it? How can based in release that mimafkir? The answer is they're not doing anything more than they originally set out to do. They originally set out the grounds upon which they took hold of the yacht was that if we don't find edim, if he doesn't bring edim, yachseru, they will give it back. It's where it was. Whoever stronger wins. The conclusion of Gemora is the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, which means we don't touch it. According to the Rashbam, see Toras in a second. According to the Rashbam, the reason why we don't take hold of it is because we're not going to release it, and therefore to take hold of it is not equitable. It's not an equitable solution. It's not fair, because once you take hold of it, that's a way that someone else can either extort from someone else, right? Because they can prevent the other guy ever getting their hands on it, even though they have no legitimate claim to it. But in the event that Beis Din did take hold of it, how would that come about? Well, either interesting. Since we don't paskin like Rav Huna, you don't really have the option now of saying they went like Rav Huna, unless it was Rav Huna's Beis Din, but that wouldn't fit with what we hold. So the logical case of where Beis Din would be tofus it is when take hold of it is when they both ask for it. They both ask for it, so they warn them. Listen, you know what you're getting yourselves into, guys. Because if we take hold of it, Beis Din, you may never see it. We'll never see the light of day again. It's going to go under the Vatican. You're stuck. You'll never see it again. You're never going to release it. Yeah. Sorry, Jeremy, you had a question before?
Two guys are disputing something.
Yeah,
You don't take prejudicial action before the start. You go based in the Paskin, you enforce, you done the rule, you
in
enforce.
theory, yeah.
And you're coming along now with a completely different set of concepts to say, let them fight it out. We don't have cause we don't have it at all. But that would seem to be contrary against the idea of
Yeah. This is quite revolutionary stuff. I agree. It is indeed. It goes completely against what you would normally assume, which is why the Gemora is going to challenge the concept as to when and where it applies. I agree with you. Okay, so that's what we'll have to see. I agree with you. It's not a normal way of resolving a dispute, but the problem is sometimes we have intractable disputes, which we don't have normal ways of resolving. So we need to work out. There has to be multiple ways open to us of resolving things, and this is potentially one avenue. So just look at the small Tosfos, not the first one, the Hahu Arva, the longer one. We might come back to some of that in a minute, but the next one, not the. Can you see the one, the penultimate one? Yeah, Rav Huna Oma Tafsinon says Tosfos, Pirush HaKuntras, Rashi learns Mishum D'Mafkinon, that the two debates are tied to one another. Because why does Rav Huna say you take hold of it? Because you're going to be able to release it. Rav Yehuda Amalo Tafsinon, Rav Yehuda says you don't take hold of it. Mishum D'Tafsinon L'Mafkinon, because if you take hold of it, you can't release it. Very nearly releases Tosfos. It doesn't seem to me to depend one machlokus on the next one. Midelo polig, as some of you picked up on, Hanu Amiroi Gufayu, b'mafkinon, Hanach de Pligi b'tafsinon, because there are different personalities involved. Rav Yehuda appears in both, but Rav Huna appears in one, and Rav Papa appears in the other. So if the two debates were like one continuous and they depended one on the other, you would expect the same figures to appear in each debate. Lekach nira, therefore Tosfos says it would seem Rav Huna de'omar tafsinon, when Rav Huna says we take hold of it, afilu leman de'omar lo mafkinon. He holds that even according to the opinion that says we don't release it. Dumehim ninon le shiovi edim. We believe him when he says he will bring edim, even if that means that the other guy is going to lose potentially, right? Because we're not going to release it ever. Rav Yehuda de'omar lo tafsinon. Rav Yehuda says we don't take hold of it. Even according to the one who, even according to the opinion, says we release it, he doesn't want you to take it, us to take it at all. He will say, yes, it's true that we release it if we took hold of it. But we don't take hold of it, says Rabbi Yehuda, because we're worried that maybe he won't be able to bring Eidim. And we won't know how to clarify then whose it is and to whom to return it. Why are you getting in? We won't want to get involved. Why are we going to get involved in something we can never resolve? So according to Tosfos, the two debates are not dependent on one another. They're two completely separate viewpoints of Rav Huna and Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Huna says that if you like, to characterize the debate crudely according to Tosfos, Rav Huna and Rabbi Yehuda, it's a debate on whether Beis Din should be more active or less active. How proactive should they be? How proactive should a Beis Din be in a dispute like this? Rav Huna says, proactive, get involved. You got a big debate over this yacht. One of the guys says, I'm going to have the proof in a week. Okay, take it. Go with that. Maybe that will resolve it. It could be that the other guy is going to really lose out by that because you're never going to release it again because it could be lo mafkinon. So what? We've got to do our best to try and resolve disputes. He says he's got proof. Let's go with it. Okay? That's Rav Huna. Rav Yehuda says, no. Rav Yehuda says that this is a very risky, high-risk strategy because, and he says, like this, according to the opinion that says you're not going to release it again, for sure it's high risk because you're making the other guy lose out. And even according to the opinion that says you do release it, so you could say, well, what's the big deal? He hasn't lost out at all. The answer is no, because why should we get involved in something which we don't have an exit strategy? We don't know who to release it to. I mean, you could have said, like I said, the Pirish Kadmon, as Eli said, right, says that the reason not to take hold of it is because during that period of time, no one's able to use it. Although I don't know if people could use it anyway, maybe because it's in a dispute. Yeah.
They can take it in the first case, but especially if it's the one going to generate proof.
Yeah.
48 hours, whatever.
Yes.
Why couldn't they take it subject to a surmise? it doesn't happen, then they're going to do X with it. They'll pre-agree what's going to happen if that doesn't happen. You know, basically, you'd have thought could come up with a solution. You know, an equitable solution. We're not going to keep it, but we're going to do this with it at the end of it, before they agree to take it. You know,
What sort of solution could they?
Well, a time bank,
that's what I'm saying. At the end of that time, but then you've got to do something at the end of that time.
Yeah.
Before we take it, we have to agree if we're going to take a condition of that. You know,
And that's even more so where they both agree to go to this with this request. They could.
I mean,
so you know what to do afterwards.
It doesn't need to. It's not so simple. The problem is it's not so simple to do that. That's the point. Once you're holding it, according to some opinions, as we said, there's the machlokes, right? It could be once you've got it, you have to hold on to it. You can't just release it. Because now you've got a responsibility of it. Now that I'm holding it in my hands, yeah, I've got a responsibility to resolve it. I can't just leave it now. Yeah. Now, go back to the previous Tosfos now, if you don't mind. Don't worry, don't get scared. We won't do all of it, but just a bit of it. Tosfos says, he introduces this hadin kol alim kvar, the din of kol alim kvar. He tells you, Tosfos tells us this is the sugya of kol alim kvar. Vim toima ma'ishim shnei meichos betalis. What's the difference between this and shnei meichos betalis? As we Adom Abreish Bovetzi asks, it's a straightforward question. Achloku, you split it. Why don't we say achloku here? Now the Rashbam does not ask the same question as Tosfos. You've got to be careful with this. It looks like the Rashbam has the same question, right? It doesn't. The Rashash changes the one word in the Rashbam, or it says Romi Leimi Masnisen. That first Rashbam we did, the second one, sorry. He asked a question from a Mishnah. Says the Rashash is not a Mishnah. That's a Brisa in Daf Zayin in Bov Metzia. The case of Shnei Meichos Metalis is not the beginning case where two are holding the talis and we say Yachloku. The Gemora goes backwards and forwards, I think, what that case exact scenario is. There's another case in a Brisa there where the psak is given, that each one takes as far as their hand is holding. That was the case the Rashbam asked a question from. Yeah. And there he says, the scenario here is no one's holding it. That's what he says. Tosfos says a different question. Tosfos says, why don't we say achloku? Why don't we say split it? 50-50. Why not? That's what we say with the talis. He says that taking hold of it, shnaim oichazim betalis, is different. The kimmut shneim muchzokim, since they're both muchzok in some way, they're holding it. Ein lonu lahaniach sheyigzolo echad lachaveiro. We can't allow either of them to steal it from the other. The choshev kilo anu yodin sheish shnei chelek bo. Because it's as if we know that they both have a part of it. They own a part of it. Because we always go after chazaka. Whatever's in your hand, there's a chazaka, it's yours. As we said in the previous sugya, even though he says it's mine, remember he took it. We knew he took it from someone else. And he says, yes, I took it, but it was mine. I took it, but it was mine. So we say, we call him a gazlan. He has to pay. Why? As if it was clear that it belonged to the guy who had the chazaka. Because when you have chazaka, when chazaka exists, right? And remember that case of this case of a nascha was a case of an ingot, a metal piece, someone's precious metal. Someone snatched from someone else. Because you snatched it from someone else, we know he had the chazaka, the other guy. It belonged to him. And therefore, you're a gazlan. You're considered to be a gazlan, right? All right, and therefore, so that's what. So what Tosfos says is, again, we don't go into all the different cases. We'll see how exactly it's different to the case that Rashbam brings. But the point is that Tosfos says you cannot. The reason why the Gemara there has to go down the route of Yachloku, it's like turning on its head. Why is it that the Gemara there has to say you split it Yachloku and not go down the route of Kol Da'alim Gvar? Is because there, Kol Da'alim Gvar means you're effectively giving a license for someone to steal. Yeah, why? Because in the klolim of halacha, if someone is oiches, whatever you're holding on to, we assume it's yours. And that means that if you end up fighting it out between you, even though that sounds logical, We can't agree. We're both holding either side. Right, it's okay. Let's see the stronger guy wins. We can't resolve it. We don't know who owns it. You can't though, because then you're licensing someone to steal. Do you see the difference? In our case, there's no chazaka. So we can say, because there's no chazaka, kol da'alim gvar. Whoever wins, whoever wins, right? But over there, we can't give that psak. We can't, it's not open to us. The option isn't open to us because since they're both holding onto the talis, to some extent at least, there's an assumption, right? A chazaka that I own it. And therefore, as far as halacha is concerned, you own it. You own it and you own it. You're both right. And therefore, what do? The only thing we can do is yachaloku. Do you understand? We can split it. That's all we can do. That's what Tosfos says. Yeah.
So you're saying that for Kol Da'alim is never a fair solution?
It's not. There's not a fair solution. Is that it's going to become clearer. It will hopefully become clear that there is a limited number of cases when the option is open. When the option is open. Yeah. Tosfos says more things, but we're going to time it. What? It's not a license for anarchy. Well, it could lead to that. We'll have to deal with that problem. Yeah. Go on.
Chazaka with the case of the boat.
Yes.
Doesn't that sort of license that you could split it because you're not stealing from anywhere, you're not kind of depriving them, because there's no chazaka. Because there's no chazaka, there's no clear ownership interest, and therefore Basin can go with the option of Kol Da'alim Gvar. But even in Kol Da'alim Gvar, which is what we need to understand, like I said, is that based in taking a step back and saying we do not know how to resolve this, therefore fight out between you, or is Kol Da'alim Gvar a way of solving a dispute? It's actually it's a psak halacha. It's like saying, well, if you end up bringing proof or you end up being stronger than the other guy, it's likely that you're the real owner. That's one possibility. It's a way of resolving it. Do you know what I mean? Like if you end up proving it because you got the photo of you standing on deck, or because you want it so badly that you fight for it, maybe that's a way of resolving and finding who the owner. Who knows? Maybe. Okay. But we've done the sugya we've done the story of the boat. So next time we'll do the key dispute.
Say we'll smash the boat up. The person who goes, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech style. Shlomo HaMelech style. Okay. All right.